Can you see the chat, Patty, by any chance?
No, but that's okay.
Okay, we'll figure it out. No problem. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this webinar by Nebulab with Patti Chan. We already hosted one of these back in January, so some of you probably know Patti. But for those of you that are seeing her for the first time, she's the ex-VP of Product at Imperfect Foods and Cord Commerce, and now a product coach collaborating with Nebulab and DTC brands and startups to help them understand how they can use product management to build value and pursue their business goals. Patty's first talk in January was about product vision. People loved it, so we decided to do a follow-up event. And so I'm really excited to host Patty today to talk about product strategy and how you can bridge the gap between vision and strategy in a practical and effective way. At times, we are going to ask you to type things in the chat. Patty likes to do it. So don't worry too much about anonymity. We won't include any of the messages in the final recording. So feel free to type with whatever you want, whatever makes the most sense to you. And if there's any feedback that you have or any problems or challenges that you're currently experiencing and would like help with, feel free to reach out, and Patty is here to help. All right, that's pretty much everything I had for the intro. So Patty, I'll let you take the stage from here.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me, Alessandro. And while I can't see your faces, I'm so excited that y'all are here. Let's show the slides. I think I can do that. Oh, perfect. Thank you, Alessandro.
You're on.
So let me reassure you that you're in the right place, hopefully. As Alessandro said back in January, I got to meet the Nebulab community for the first time, all you wonderful D2C brands and e-commerce companies, to talk about product vision. Product vision being this future of where your product can be, let's say 3 to 5 years from now, what future gets to be like for your customers. And whenever I talk about product vision, the next natural question I get is, what now? Great, I've got this wonderful articulation of what this inspiring new future is going to be like 3 years from now. But how do I back out from that to figure out what we build with our engineering team or our agency next week? And so that's what we're going to talk about today, product strategy. Now, y'all are doing product strategy already. If you have a product on the market, then there's some approach that you're taking to make product decisions. So I'm not going to cover the basics in this talk. I'm not going to talk about prioritization or how to estimate ROI. What I am going to share with you are 3 tools and frameworks that help me go from an okay or good product leader to a great product leader. And just as a preview, those 3 tools and frameworks are 3 Horizons, Pirate Metrics, and the Opportunity Assessment. If we haven't met yet, my name is Patti Chan. I have been in digital product for just under 2 decades, the last 7 years of it being a VP of product or head of digital product at mostly e-commerce startups that are in growth stage or early stage. So whether that is SaaS e-commerce platforms like Cord Commerce, or for 3 years, I was at a startup called Imperfect Foods, delivering groceries, fighting food waste. I joined Imperfect Foods when it was barely product market fit, about 16 million in annual revenue. And during the 3 years that I was there, it grew to a $500 million company. When I am not building product, I live in sunny California with a partner and my rescue dog, Tahini. That is Tahini in the upper right. When I first got the job as the most senior product leader in the company, I came from a product management background. So I did what I knew best, which was to prioritize roadmaps, features that we were going to build. I would go, okay, this is the quarter where we're going to add Apple Pay. This is the quarter where we're going to redesign the product listing page to add categories instead of just products, if this were an e-commerce. And eventually I learned that that's not strategy, right? That's a roadmap, but it's not product strategy. And I still hear this from a lot of the leaders and teams that I work with. When you follow a product roadmap, a list of features to build, without that accompanying product strategy, it's kind of like when you go on a road trip and you stop at the first gas station, you pick up a map as you're checking out, and you pick the highway that most jumps out at you from the map and you start driving. Now, you're going to move forward, you're going to feel that momentum, but you might not like where you end up. And that's exactly the way it is with following a product roadmap without that accompanying product strategy or North Star destination. And so eventually I learned to get really good at crafting a product vision, that articulation, that story of what the future gets to be like 3 years from now, of that experience for your customers if the best version of your product were to exist, that best version that you can at least imagine given what you know today. And we could spend an entire hour talking about product vision, which is what I did back in January. I'm not going to do that right now. If you're curious, you can check out my website. I have an article series on it. But my favorite tool for articulating a product vision is the illustrated storyboard, which you see on this right here. But back to product strategy, a lot of times these three phrases, product roadmap, product vision, product strategy, are all conflated with each other. And so, an easy way to tease them apart is to think about the time horizon with which you're imagining out in each of these terms. So, we actually start with a company vision, or sometimes it's known as a mission statement, the purpose for why the company was even founded in the first place. And that mission statement should serve you for at least 10 years. You don't want to be changing that very often. Once you have that mission statement, then whether you are the founder wearing the product hat or whether you are the CPO or head of digital product at your company, you can then put together the product vision. And that should be looking out anywhere from 3 to 5 years. Or if you're very early stage, if this is the first year your product is in the market, okay, if that's 1 to 2 years, given the visibility that you have, how much you understand about your customers today. From there, the CEO or maybe the founder ought to be establishing annual company goals. So every year, setting some goals that mostly fall under three categories. One is the revenue target for that year. Number two is whether we're going to introduce a new line of revenue. And number three is whether we're going to expand into a new market. Those are generally the categories for company goals. Now, once you have the company goals as the most senior product leader, again, maybe you're the founder wearing the product hat, or maybe you're the head of product, head of digital product. This works for whether it's a physical product or a digital product, or ideally both in the strategy. The product strategy I like to set twice a year. So for 2 quarters, the first half of the year and the second half of the year. The product strategy is an articulation of how we're going to realize those company goals, so revenue target, while making our way to that eventual product vision. That's what a product strategy is. And I give that product strategy to my teams, my product managers, my engineers, to come up with a prioritized product roadmap that will realize that product strategy. And we evaluate that roadmap, that performance of the roadmap on a quarterly basis. That way, if we're not tracking the plan, we can course correct. And it's that roadmap. So, in a collection of maybe 1 to 3 projects that we then break down into a prioritized backlog that we give over to our engineering team or to our agency to work in engineering sprints, however cadence you want that as. I'm not going to bury the lead here. This is what my product strategy looks like. You'll notice that it is a written document. This is a 1 pager, maybe a 2 pager that uses complete sentences. So not PowerPoint slides and bullet points. It uses complete sentences to articulate a compelling and well-reasoned statement on what we're going to focus on for these next 2 quarters or that first half of the year, second half of the year, and more importantly, why, right? Why are we focusing on these things and not something else? There's four elements that really make this product strategy one pager or two pager work. So on the right hand side, you'll see that it ties back to those company goals, or OKR if you use that framework in your company. This holds us accountable that we're not just building things for fun, we're actually building things that move the business forward in terms of that revenue strategy, or maybe we're launching a new product. If you look over on the left-hand side here, you'll see that there's themed objectives. So for any given product strategy that I'm putting together, there's usually two themes, product areas that I'm focusing on, maybe three, but really any more than that, no matter how many product teams I have, probably stretching too thin and not going to actually hit the targets, the numbers that we want to hit. Now, underneath each theme, there's a paragraph that describes why. Story tells what does this theme mean? Why is it important? And the why comes from insights that are coming directly from customers. So whether that is talking to your customer service team, or talking directly in qualitative interviews with your customers, or maybe it's examining your user data, there is evidence here that backs up why this is the most important thing to focus on for this next 2 quarters. And then the last thing that makes this document really useful and powerful for aligning all your teams and all your leadership is identifying leading and lagging success metrics. This was the second most powerful thing that we got good at Imperfect Foods that allowed us to achieve the success that we did. It was identifying leading indicators that could reliably predict a lagging success metric. So I'll give an example you can see in the top theme here. This is a classic e-commerce example. So for a half, we wanted to focus on increasing revenue. And for that time period, we decided to do that by focusing on average order value, increasing the AOV. Now, you can't really directly impact AOV. You don't know whether your AOV has increased until the order is complete and you're looking at them in aggregate and doing the average, right? That's too late if you're just looking at that. Now, if you look further up the funnel and look at how users are adding items to their cart, that's something that's like a leading indicator that you can have more impact on. And so we knew that if we could increase the number of items added to a cart, then the overall AOV would also increase. And so for that half, we focused on shopping discovery. We focused on redesigning that experience, adding new features so that our customers could see more products as they were doing their shopping experience before they left it. I want to hear from you all. Alessandro gave you a warning that I would do this. Go ahead and type into the chat. What are some leading and lagging success metrics that you have focused on in the past? And maybe even include how it helped you. I find that hearing other examples of leading and lagging metrics can really help cement this concept in. And hopefully I'm looking at the right thing. I'm looking at StreamYard live viewer comments. Alessandro, if you see comments, just holler.
Yeah, I'll give you a shout out as soon as something pops up.
Okay.
Um, I see that I can feature them on the screen. So one thing you might want to do is possibly continue with the presentation, and if anything comes up, I can show it on your screen. Does that work?
Okay. That
Perfect.
works for me. Um, and yeah, I don't know if there's a emoji or anything reaction that people can give just to let us know that y'all are out there. You can go ahead and do that too. Hopefully everybody made it into the conference. All right. Well, I think that's a good idea, Alessandra. I'll keep going here. So that's a product strategy. Now, how did I get here? That's what most people want to know. How did I come up with the content in this product strategy? That's the anatomy, but how do we get to the meat of it? Well, I've said a couple times now that I work backwards from this product vision. So that articulation of what the future gets to be like for your customers when this best version of your product exists, at least the version that you can imagine for right now. Now, how to get there 3 years from now, it's not linear, right? It would be so great if there was a cookie cutter way that if we just build this feature, this feature, this feature, this feature, then we'll have created this product vision. But it doesn't work like that. And so, what I do instead is work backwards and identify the key milestones that need to be true in order for us to recognize that the product vision has indeed happened. And these key milestones are not all the same, right? Some key milestones are going to take more work than other ones. Some key milestones are dependencies. And so, you have to deal with this one and address it before we can even start working on this other one further down in the future. And so, a framework that has really helped me reason through those key milestones and even identify them, given a shiny, exciting future product vision, is the Three Horizons framework. Now, I will be honest, the first time that I heard about the Three Horizons framework, I kind of rolled my eyes. It was developed by McKinsey, big consulting company, to use by big companies with many lines of business. I didn't think that this would work for product, but it actually can adapt pretty well for product and product management. And so, if you were looking at a McKinsey definition of this, you would see business all over this slide. In this case, I'm inserting the word product. So, what is the Three Horizons framework? In Horizon One, you're focusing on your core product. You're investing resources into what many people will call table stakes. What are the must haves? So, maximizing that and also expending energy on maintaining that core product to make sure that it continues to work. Now, once you're fairly solid on that, you don't have to wait until you're 100%, but once you're fairly solid on that, you can actually move into Horizon 2, which is building adjacent emerging products that are within arm's reach of your current product and you can leverage your expertise, but it is something new that your core product doesn't do yet. So that's Horizon 2. And then once you're kind of solid on that, Horizon 3 is creating wildly innovative new product options that don't yet exist in the industry. This is what's going to become your competitive advantage, right? And while that is what's probably going to get realized 3 years out to realize your product vision, you can start planting seeds today. Maybe there's some R&D work that you do to start gaining more information about that Horizon 3 product. Maybe you start putting feelers out. And once you succeed in creating that Horizon 3 product, that will actually become, again, your competitive advantage and it will become your core product. And so Horizon 3 becomes Horizon 1, and then you get to repeat this horizon again. You get to figure out what the next 3 years or next big innovative thing is and work towards that. How does this actually apply to products? I'll give you a real example from Imperfect Foods. I joined Imperfect Foods in 2017. The company was actually founded in 2015. And in those first 5 years, I was able to realize the first cycle of the product vision. So when I joined, we were still very much in Horizon 1, the core product. Imperfect Foods was a CSA-like veggie produce box that would come every week, but you got to go online and customize it. That was already what was a leg up from just subscribing to your farmer's market CSA box. So we spent a lot of time shoring that up, making sure that the subscription worked, fixing bugs, building various features to shore up the table stakes, the things that our customers expected to be able to do and have. And then in Horizon 2, and you'll notice that I'm talking about both the physical product as well as the digital product experience, the e-commerce experience together in this product strategy. In Horizon 2, we went beyond just the veggies and produce to start adding other items like coffee and olive oil. And customers could come in and add those things to their cart for the week. And so our digital experience also updated to accommodate those new categories. Now, we got pretty solid on that, but it got really exciting in Horizon 3. So Horizon 3, which was our product vision, was for our customers to have their entire week's worth of groceries coming from imperfect foods, fighting food waste. And so we introduced all the categories of of a grocery store. Not only were you getting fruits and veggies, you were now getting meat and seafood, beverages, dairy, and on the digital experience side, not only were you able to get these new products, but they came pre-filled each week in your subscription. So even if you forgot to come log in and customize your box for that week, you would still get a week's worth of groceries showing up on your doorstep. That was wildly innovative, especially for a grocery store fighting food waste, the items fighting food waste. And so that was how we realized our first incarnation of our product vision in the first 5 years of Imperfect Foods. I'm going to keep on going here. If folks have comments or questions, please put them in the Q&A. Oh, and by the way, the prerequisite for that last one was to actually know those that product vision, right? In order to determine those milestones, you have to first know what that North Star destination is. Okay, so I've talked about how we can work backwards to identify these key milestones from the product vision. And wouldn't it be so easy if we could just put our heads down for 3 years and build, 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 build? Now, it's not that easy. We know that. There's always going to be downward pressure getting exerted from company goals because apart from building product and features towards a product vision, you also have to bring in revenue so that your business remains viable. Or at the very least, increase growth or show some markers of success so that you can reach that next fundraising round. Or in today's economic climate, improve your unit cost and unit economics so that you can extend your runway. So those company goals, the revenue metrics, et cetera, that's exerting downward pressure. And so, a framework that really helped me to reason through how we're going to address those company goals while keeping on track to our product vision was a framework called Pirate Metrics. Pirate Metrics came out of 500 startups back in 2015. So it's been around for a bit. And essentially, the concept is that there's 5 different levers that you can pull at any time to impact your business. Those 5 metrics are: one is acquisition, and they're not in order, but acquisition, getting more customers to your business, right? Pretty straightforward. Next one, activation, getting those customers to use your product for the first time and hopefully get value from it. Next, revenue, getting your customers to pay for your product or your service and maybe increase what they pay for it. So that's where things like upsell comes in. Another lever, retention, getting customers to stay around for a long time. So the stickiness of your product. This is particularly important when you've got a subscription-based model. And then finally, referral, customers bringing other customers into the fold, introducing to your product. And so deciding which one to focus on at any given time is pretty important and maybe not as straightforward as you would think. So for any given quarter, I would choose one, maybe 2 of these levers to focus my product teams or focus my effort on. Whenever I got greedy and decided to focus on more than that, similar to the product strategy doc, I would get spread too thin and I wouldn't hit the metrics that we wanted to hit, the success targets. Now, that meant making some pretty tough decisions on what to focus on. And like I said, it might not be as clear cut as you would think. I'll give an example, a fairly common one. Acquisition is something that most companies want to focus on. They want more new customers, right? But if you haven't gotten your product sticky enough, if your product doesn't add enough continuous value, then you might see people come in, sign up, maybe even pay for a first month if it's a subscription product, or maybe they buy one product from you, but they don't like it. And so they're just going to churn away. Or in a non subscription model, they're not going to come back and try your other products. And so you get this leaky bucket. Now, it might be fairly, you might think that it's obvious to focus on acquisition and get new customers and get paid ads and create landing pages. But the strategy there, if you have this leaky bucket, is to actually focus on retention. Retention being improve your product, add more value, fix the things that are causing people to churn away, right? So, as I've worked with startups in the past, and even the startups that I coach today, there's usually three of these that are more common to focus on. Like I said, acquisition. Who doesn't want more new customers? But again, be careful of that leaky bucket phenomenon. Revenue is another one that frequently gets focused on. So, increasing the lifetime value, increasing the average order value, how much your customers are paying. And then retention is the other really important one. So again, if you've got a subscription model, especially looking at the retention and looking at whether customers are getting value continuously through the lifetime of their engagement with your product. Now, I'll give one more example of where sometimes it's tough to make these decisions. If you're a SaaS company, so oftentimes in SaaS or B2B, you have these year-long contracts. And sometimes what that might mean is you don't focus on retention until folks are getting close to that end of that 12-month period, right? So maybe you've got a lot of people coming in a cohort from January, thanks to some big marketing push that you made. But then you kind of coast for 12 months until it comes time for them to annually renew. Now, if you're not paying attention to that till month 10 or month 11, then it's a little too late, right? If they're unhappy and they're all going to churn away, that's too late for you to prevent that from happening. And so, what you want to do is 6 months ahead of that, or 3 months ahead of that, or ideally, if you have the bandwidth throughout the entire time, is focus on retention, improving your product value so that you don't get this nasty surprise at the end with everybody leaving your company or leaving your product. So I'll keep going here. If folks have thoughts on which lever, which metric are you most focused on, I would love to hear some comments on that. Okay, also prerequisite on this. So in order to make a good decision on which lever you're going to pull at any given time, you have to have those company goals. What is the revenue goal? Are you trying to get a new product off the ground? Those company goals are what's going to steer you on what your pirate metric should be. Also, it's called pirate metric because the acronym here is R. All right, last but not least here. This is great because we're going to have some good time for Q&A. So a tool that I want to leave you with is the opportunity assessment. The opportunity assessment comes from Marty Kagan of SVPG. He's a multi-book author for product management. And the opportunity assessment is a pretty hefty document. Again, complete sentences, not a PowerPoint slide. It is anywhere between 8 and 12 page document that is very well researched, very well thought out, very well considered, that lays out the argument for whether to pursue a given opportunity or not. And if so, how we would go about doing that. And again, most importantly, why. So the opportunity assessment, in order to put this together, this is the 7 parts of it that I adapted into a template that I coach my teams and leaders on when putting together an opportunity assessment. First, there's the background, so the context for why are we even talking about this? What has happened that has led us to consider this particular opportunity? Next, we go into a vision. So this is a lowercase vision. It's not the same as the bigger product vision. This is but similarly, a vision for what gets to happen if this particular opportunity were to get realized, if this particular product or overhaul or feature were to get built, then what does the future get to look like for the end users for this small sliver of hopefully what fits into the greater product vision? We go into a hypothesis. So the formula for this looks something like if we were to do X, then we will increase revenue, customer NPS, AOV, because we believe X will be true. So this is, again, holding us accountable to some outcome that makes our customers happy and hopefully works for our business as well. Next, how do we actually measure that success? So, how are we going to capture that customer NPS or that AOV increase and be able to attribute it back to this particular opportunity or this particular endeavor? This is important because you want to know what's working and what's not working. If you're going to try a bunch of things and just assume that it works out, then you're missing out on some really good strategy. If you try something and it works to increase an important success metric, then maybe there's an opportunity to double down on that and do more things that are closer to that. And then if it's not working, then you should have the signals to give you the confidence to let it go and try something wildly different. So, measuring success and making sure that you have the data instrumentation to both track those metrics and be able to attribute it to certain endeavors, that's pretty important to do. And then there's the plan. So this is the development plan for how we're going to bring this opportunity to life. Now, you don't have all the information at the beginning of this. To put together an opportunity assessment, you're really just doing research. You're talking to a lot of people around the company, you're maybe talking to customers, you're maybe examining some data. And so, based on that initial assessment, you can put together a development plan that gives some idea to readers of what the scope of this opportunity is, maybe the phases in which you're going to develop things. We're going to build this first, and then we're going to build this, and then we're going to do this, and then we're going to launch this. So that's a development plan, but do acknowledge that you don't know everything yet. As you start to execute, you're going to find out more, and you may need to adjust your plan. And then finally, risks and questions. So you don't see this on the slide, but I coach people to go systematically through four major risks. This is also from Marty Kagan's work. There's four categories of risks that are always helpful to systematically go through. Number one is value. Are your customers or your end users going to get value from this? Do they want this thing to happen? Pretty important to ask, right? Number two is usability. So let's say the thing that you're going to build is super valuable, but if people can't figure out how to get that value, maybe the navigation is not intuitive, or they just don't understand how to use it, or they can't log in, then that usability prevents them from actually receiving the value. So that's another big risk. A third risk that you want to look at is feasibility. Do we have the budget, the resources, the skills, the know how to actually put together this product, bring it to life in a way that's going to successfully deliver that value? And this could mean, do you have the budget to work with that external agency that's going to build this? Do you have, if you have an in house team, do you have the skills in your team? AI and data is machine learning is a really big hot topic right now. And if you want to get into that, do you have somebody on your team who's well versed with working with big data sets? So that is the feasibility risk. And then finally, there is a viability risk. Does this particular product or opportunity work for your business? If you were to move ahead with this, does this support your business model? Or maybe does it cannibalize another part of how you bring in income for your business? Or does it follow the rules by which your business is regulated by? If you happen to be in an industry that's health or, I don't know, cannabis or something like that, there's regulations that you have to follow. So, this new product, does it actually adhere to those regulations? Or is it even ethical? Is building this product and going after this opportunity ethical to do? So that is viability. And then finally, of course, like I said, this is early in the process. And so there's still going to be many questions that you don't know, that you don't have the answer to yet. And so calling them out in this 8 to 12-page doc is also going to be very helpful. Now, this is a big endeavor. It usually takes 2, maybe 3 weeks to draft, get a couple revisions through to be able to talk to various people around the company, finance, operations, maybe get some proof points, some support that this is a good thing to tackle. And so I wouldn't wield an opportunity assessment just for any old feature that you're going to build. If you're adding a search box to your UI, I would not put together an opportunity assessment for this. But if you're thinking about launching a whole new product, and again, this could work for a physical product or the digital experience for which to sell that product, this would be really good for that. Or if you're doing a major overhaul of an existing product, this would be really good for that. When you don't go through the systematic risks or even putting together an opportunity assessment, two things often happen. So let's say you didn't thoroughly go through the risks and come up with ideas on how to mitigate each one. Then what happens is you start to develop, you're 2 months into the project, and then you uncover, shoot, there's this dependency that needed to happen in order for us to continue. And now you have to pause your project to take care of that dependency, and that's going to ultimately delay your entire timeline, right? So that happens a lot when you don't look at your risks, especially your feasibility. The other thing that can happen when you don't take the time to put together an opportunity assessment is you might again get 2 months into developing this project only to realize, ooh, this is not the highest leverage thing that we could be working on. There's actually this other opportunity that is more important to tackle. And now you've wasted 2 months. You're going to sunset that and you're going to pivot to this other thing. And so up front or front loading the work, the thought work to put together an opportunity assessment and give yourself the discipline to even write it down and articulate it, that's what's going to give you better product strategy, make better strategic decisions for how you're going to reach your product vision. All right. Last slide here, and then we can get to go to Q&A. The prerequisite for all of these things, the opportunity assessment, picking the right lever or metric to focus on for any given quarter, figuring out those key milestones that are going to get you through those three horizons all the way to a product vision. The prerequisite for all of those is product discovery. Now, I already told you before what the second most powerful thing that we did at Imperfect Foods was to help us get to the success that we did, which was getting good at leading and lagging metrics. The number one most powerful thing that we did was product discovery, talking to customers. And so this is what's going to give you the confidence to go towards a certain product strategic direction over another one. What do I mean by product discovery or confidence on how your customers think? It breaks down into 4 points. So you want to have key user insights, not just facts, not just raw notes or transcripts, but pulling out the needles in the haystack, the golden needles in the haystack, pulling out the key actionable insights on motivations. So, why do your customers even care about this problem that you're endeavoring to solve? Why is this so important to them? Why are they going to spend money on it? Or is this maybe a nice to have? What is their motivation for caring? Number two is the status quo. What are they currently doing to solve that problem? Maybe they're using some other thing that has nothing to do with you, or maybe they are using your product. So, how are they solving that problem today? Three is the pain points. What don't they like about how they solve the problem today. Again, whether this is outside of engaging with you or maybe the pain points that they experience even when using your product, even if they're loyal and retaining, maybe there's still some pain points that they wish were better. And then finally, the hopes and desires. If they had a magic wand to create a different experience, a different future, what would that future look like? And so this is oftentimes great fodder for how you articulate your product vision as well. So getting to know your customers. Who are they? How do they think? What do they say? I can tell you from my experience working with startups and both in the past and coaching them today, whether it is early stage seed company just getting started or all the way to a big established public company, in fact, more so when it's a more mature company, product discovery, talking to customers, getting out of the building, probably not doing it as much as you could be to fully reap the benefits of good product strategy and good decision making. So, good rule of thumb here, you're talking to customers at least once a week. And maybe that's just evaluating something that you've got a mock up or a prototype. And then periodically, you're doing a bigger generative discovery where you're free form asking questions around people's lifestyles, people's experience with these problems. And so, if nothing else, I hope that this inspires you to go out and talk to your end users a lot more, whether you yourself, as the product leader, sitting in, asking customers yourself, or encouraging your teams to, and then synthesizing together when you come back. That was the number one most powerful thing that we did, that I did to improve my product sense and improve the product strategy that we would implement. And that's it. Thank you so much for listening. I felt this. I bet you feel it sometimes too. Product leadership is really hard. And so, if what you heard here today resonates with you, if you want somebody to go along this with you, we are here to help. I think I can say this on behalf of Alessandro. I love working with the Nebulab folks. And so if you would like partners to go through discovery or up leveling your teams on discovery or product vision or product strategy, we would love to partner with you. Alessandro, I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks so much, Patty. That's great presentation as always. Well, I've always been jealous of your product sense. You know that. Now I'm also jealous of your PowerPoint skills. So you need to teach me at some point. So we actually had a few questions trickle in. I don't think you have
All
access to them,
right.
but I'm just gonna
That's
show
okay.
them here on the
I'm
screen.
gonna listen on the
Yeah,
spot and wing it.
I think I can show them. So the first one is actually my question. I'm just taking that right as the host. So yeah, it's showing up. Perfect. So my question is for a company that is already doing that research and creating product opportunities and validating them, but doesn't necessarily have an overarching strategy yet. What would you say is the first step in building that strategy? So how can we go from 0 to 1 or 1 to 2, if you will? Are there any workshops or processes? Is there a cadence? Do you have any advice?
Yeah, well, there's definitely workshops that I can offer, but if you want to do this on your own, so it can happen in parallel. So let's say you're building out a current project. Something that I think scares people about hearing the word product strategy is that they think they have to stop everything just to think really hard and then like no movement is happening, and that's what prevents them from investing in strategy, right? They just keep on building. The good news is that you can do it in parallel, so have your engineering team and your product managers continue to build the thing. Alongside of it, talk to customers. And so if you don't yet have a product vision or you don't have a clear articulation of where you want to be even 3 months from now, or if you don't have a clear articulation of where you want to be 3 years from now. The best way is to start talking to customers. And so at Imperfect, when we were getting ready to create the new product vision, because we had fully realized our first 5 year one, we got together the biggest product discovery, customer interview, user research campaign that we had ever done. We talked to 60 customers that included both existing as well as people who had churned. We came up with an interview script that got to know what they liked about our product, what they didn't like, how they grocery shop, who does it, what do they think about when they choose something over another thing, yada, 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 right? And through those 2, 3 weeks that we were doing these customer interviews, for some people it was full time. So our designer, for example, did that full time. And then other people, like engineers or product managers, they would just drop in for an hour here, an hour there, and then keep on building their current project. Once we had all that raw material, we synthesized it. We spent a week, again, not full time, but a week looking for the patterns, looking for the trends of everything that we heard. And suddenly, insights started popping up. Oh, they don't know what they're going to eat for dinner tonight, let alone 3 days from now. So, how are they going to pick what to buy in their groceries a week in advance? Oh, maybe we should introduce meal planning as a feature. Oh, what would the future look like if people could meal plan and not just check out on a shopping site? And so that was the bud of that strategy. That was the bud of that vision. And then working backwards with the key milestones and coming up with the strategy. That was a really long answer. I hope that answered your question and that was helpful.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you so much. All right, let's get to the next one. Okay, yeah, here he is. So the question is, how often should I restate our product strategy in the day to day? Because sometimes we get too focused on what's in front of us and forget the bigger picture.
That is such a good question and happens to the best of us, happens to everyone. I have a very straightforward answer for you. Once you've gotten together your product strategy, so remember, or at least the way that I advocate for it, is defining it for your first half of the year and the second half of the year. And ideally, once you have this articulated, you're sharing it at an all hands meeting, and then you want to repeat it 7 times. That 7 times can be in one on one meetings, it can be in sprint planning, it can be in 2 all hands meetings from now. So you might say, y'all remember us talking about the strategy for this next half. Kudos to so and so for making progress on that already. Just as a reminder, our main themes for this half are X and Y, and here's why. You repeat it 7 times, especially when you're introducing a new one at the first half of the year or the second half of the year.
Awesome. So it's a bit more art than science to repeat it in the right places.
And when you feel like you're a broken record and you've
Yeah,
repeated it way too much and you're getting embarrassed, that's
yeah,
when you've started to repeat it enough.
yeah. I heard that a lot as a leader. Cool. Next one is, as your company grows, should you focus on more goals in parallel or just bigger slash more ambitious goals?
Oh, this is a really good question. It really depends on where your business is at. For bigger, more ambitious goals, I will tell you, I'm working with startups right now who we're in a bit of an economic crisis. Fundraising has gotten harder, right? And so when your runway is maybe not as long, then you're taking bigger swings at the bat, right? So bigger, more ambitious goals, high risk, but hopefully high reward. And so there's no one size fits all answer to this. It really depends on your circumstance. However, in terms of as your company grows, should you focus on more goals in parallel? I would, again, it really depends on case by case, but as a general rule of thumb, when I see companies that have grown that are later stage and they try to do 10 different goals in parallel, it does not work. And you would think we have more people. Now we can do more disparate things. But also, if your company has grown to that headcount or grown to that volume of customers, your complexity has also grown. And so if you're building a certain thing, there's so many more dependencies and risks and repercussions to doing any small thing than there was back when you were just 5 people with like 50 customers, right? And so if you don't take in that complexity into account and try to do too many things, then it's probably just going to blow up. Either make people unhappy or worst case, churn customers away because you didn't do something as well as you should have.
Thank you so much. And the next one is, do startups usually focus on different R metrics depending on stage,
Mm,
or do they go back and forth no matter the
yeah.
stage?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's usually going back and forth. So I will say if you are an earlier stage company, let's say pre-product market fit, really quick definition of that, if you are SaaS, it means you have at least, let's say, 10 live customers that are paying you and are really happy and are referenceable. Um, and then if you're a consumer, there's this like nice hockey stick of people repeating or returning, showing retention, right? So if you are pre-product market fit, then you're really just working on the product value. You're working on making the product as enticing as it possibly can be for a specific market who will pay for it. It's after product market fit that you can start playing around with, ooh, do we focus on acquisition or do we focus on retention? Oh, or do we focus on increasing revenue? And it will go back and forth, especially as you move through Horizon 1 and Horizon 2. So once you've stabilized your core product, you're probably going to want to introduce a new adjacent feature or product. That's when you may have to or enjoy the benefits of acquiring new customers that are a little bit different from your initial early adopters. So maybe that's acquisition time, or maybe it's revenue time because you get to upsell because you're adding more value now. And so you do go back and forth.
And last question is, should we have a one-to-one mapping between strategy and OKRs? Which is a
Yeah.
great question. I
It's a
also
great
wondered.
question. Yes. Yes. um, it's always so easy to come to these and say, here's how you do it. And it feels so crisp and clear. The reality of being in a startup or any company building product is it's messy, right? So in an ideal world, yes, one-to-one mapping. This is your product strategy for the next half. We're focusing on these two themes. Those themes will focus on these leading and these, three leading indicators that ultimately lead to this amazing revenue uptick. And in terms of OKRs, okay, team A, you're going to have this objective and key result. Team B, you're going to have this OKR that ties to those themes. That would be great. If you can do that, wonderful. And chances are your likelihood of success is going to be really high. Then there's the reality. Oh, we have to go through compliance. Oh shoot, we didn't meet compliance. So now we have to do a full audit and make sure we're updating all of our logins. So you got to fit that in, right? It's not necessarily strategic or going to get you closer to your product vision, but but it's something you have to do in order to keep your business running. And so that's where it's not clear cut all the time, but you want to strive for a mapping between your product strategy and your OKRs.
Thanks so much. That was all, I think. Yeah, that was the last one.
Great
Patty,
questions. Thank you.
thanks so much for your time. Thanks everyone for attending. We are going to upload this on YouTube, so you can go back to it and reference it in case you want to revise any of the content. And I will also make sure to include contact info both for Nebulab and Patty. So if you need help with your product strategy, especially if you're a D2C brand, reach out and we'll be glad to help you. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you so much, Nebulab, Alessandra, for having me. And thank you all for hanging out.
Thank you. Bye.